So one of the things we're trying to stay away from is judgments and evaluations and diagnosis, because diagnosis leads to self-fulfilling prophecies. People easily become belligerent in the face of imposition, call someone a shit driver, and they'll prove just how shit. And judgments are not feelings, we covered that as well. So when you say things like, I feel inadequate is a judgment, not a feeling. I feel misunderstood, judgment. I feel ignored, judgment. Abused, attacked, cheated, betrayed, coerced, manipulated, so on, all judgments. And one of the most detrimental, subversive, putrid, horrible things that's been done in history is the use of language, sticks and stones. And their words, if they're carefully crafted, do hurt. They shouldn't, but we've been trained to respond in that way. We've suffered at the hands of manipulators using shame, guilt and emotional blackmail, violent language to alter our behaviour to serve their purposes. All the while they try to convince us that our behaviour creates their pain. So we started to take responsibility for others' feelings. This will always end in disaster. We can only be responsible for that which we are able to control. And at the same time, with full responsibility comes full liability. That's fair enough. But the manipulations of violent language seeks to encumber us with liability and no responsibility. It's all our fault, but nothing we can do seems to be able to change that. You've heard them before. What you said really made me feel sad and upset. Okay, tell me something that I can say right now that will make you happy then. Oh no, there's nothing you can say now that will make me happy. Funny how that only works one way. So in most cases this is because they themselves have learned this impoverished behaviour somewhere else and passed it on. It doesn't make them a bad person, it's judgment again, just tragically ill-equipped to express themselves and unable to control their own feelings, as they too have been running the blame programme all their life. You made me feel, your actions caused me to do something. So, yeah, we can only be responsible for that which we are able to control, and we can't control how people interpret our behaviour or messages, nor what they think, or do, or say, as much as we try. Therefore, we are not responsible for their interpretations or their feelings that follow. We are responsible for our behaviour. The best we can do is check in with the recipient and see how they interpreted our message. If it isn't what we intended, we can send again in a modified way and then check again. Thus, people are 100% responsible for what they say or do. This is the kind of proponent of the notion of free speech. It does not mean we can say what we like with impunity or no consequences, i.e. do a poor communication that results in poor responses. And indeed, there are laws as well that kind of hold people responsible for incitement to do harm, or where harm has been caused as a direct consequence of someone inciting it. Frankly, I'm surprised how the anti-vaxxers are still getting away with it. They are killing people. And only this week, Mad Mike Hughes, shall we call him a flat earther? I wouldn't call him a flat earther in a kind of traditional sense. He said, I heard him say, I was on a podcast where he actually said, you know what, I don't know, I'm not saying it's flat, I'm not saying it's globe, but I want to go up and have a look for myself. But he also had some very out there views. You've heard them all before. The ones that do the rounds every few years, you know, the Illuminati, that they're controlling everything. It's a Masonic conspiracy. The government bankruptcy, 77 years jubilee, the legal fictions, the trilateral commission, the banking conspiracies. Some of it's true. Some of it is true. The fractional reserve system is true. And it does have a consequence for the way that it exists. But reptilian monarchs, draw the line there. Anyway, so yes, he went out into the desert with his homemade rocket, and pretty good effort. It's quite a piece of kit. No ambulance, no permit, no insurance, because, well, full responsibility. Fine, all right. And then when the thing comes crashing back to Earth and he's killed, who's going to mop that mess up? And this is the thing. It's all well and good asking questions, but keep asking. Because if you think or realise or come to the conclusion that you can just build a rocket and fire up without actually doing the groundwork beforehand, the preparation, not just assuming of what you're going to find up there or hoping that when you get there it's how you imagined it to be, doing all the testing on parachutes, doing the testing on G-forces, doing the mathematics which show what your terminal velocity will be or how much height you're going to reach given the energy that you're carrying on board in terms of fuel or steam pressure. But that's just maths. We don't need that. Well, this is what happens. And just whilst I'm on my rant, this is why it costs NASA $50 million a day, because research takes a lot of people, a lot of time to check, double check, and check again, and check again. We've talked about this before in some of the audios about collateral damage and expense. So if you're going to do something and it's going to cost a lot of money and potentially put lives at risk, you better make sure that you commit enough resources to ensure the result. The worst thing to do would be to go half committed, put lives at risk, actually do harm to people, spend everyone's money and still not get the result. I'm not sure whether I'm justifying the ends justify the means. Certainly not. There are ethical, moral boundaries, of course. But also, on the other side of things, you've got to ask all these things going into space, the ISS and all that, what does it get us? What are we getting for in the end? Sometimes the answer is just, well, we don't know, but normally when we do these things, it leads to something unexpected that has a benefit, but we can't say what that is ahead of time. So doing a cost-benefit analysis is tricky. So, coming back to Earth a bit, in nonviolent communication, any expression of needs must be expressed followed by because I. So it never starts out of the form, you make me feel, therefore you have to change. Nor does it have the prototype, I am angry because you, which implies the other person has control over your emotional state. If you're not in control of your emotional state, then, wow, that's an impoverished life. I know sometimes it's hard. The way to do it is, I am feeling, specify feeling, because I, specify cause and effect. So I'm feeling pleased because I was very grateful that whatever happened. Therefore, whatever feelings we have is a result of how we take things. And therefore, it's important that we have to be conscious of what's going on in our head that creates our feelings. News, TV, soaps, external stimulus, other people's programs and moralistic judgments have been programmed into us. What makes good drama on the TV is not good to model for effective behaviour, and I wonder what kind of damage things like EastEnders and Coronation Street have done. Thus, the programmed judgments create anger, hate, mistrust, guilt, depression and shame. I have asked people why they watch Coronation Street, and they say, well, because at least my life isn't as shit as those on the television. And I kind of walk away in silence not knowing how to handle that, because I say, but you do know that that's fictional, right? So you're saying that your life isn't as miserable as you thought because of a fictional character that's having a worse time makes your life okay. Okay, walk away slowly. It's how we interpret things that creates the choices of feelings. There's also a presupposition that we must choose a feeling. Maybe we don't. So when we're communicating then, it's not from a place of others' judgments or expectations, it's from our needs. Please, thank you. We might have a need for others to be happy, but this is dangerous grounds because then our need is dependent on others' state of mind, and we fall into that trap again. When we feel anger, guilt, shame, it should be an indication that we are not connected to our needs, and instead we've rushed to analysis and judgment. And this is what all this process is. It's an exploration. It's guiding the speaker, if we're doing active listening, to navigate around through over their emotions into feelings to connect with the needs. So we can't rush it. We have to let them explore that. So going deeper, know that behind these judgments is an unmet need. It's easier and a bad habit to stay on the surface of emotions and just react. So in the model of NLP somewhere, there's this kind of see-do behaviour that gets people into all sorts of trouble. See shiny things, buy shiny things, without an appropriate step in the middle of, do I need shiny new thing? We'll just make the picture of our adoring neighbours looking with jealousy as we drive off into the sunset with our new Bugatti. Okay, so what's the unmet need there? For example, recognition, respect, ego, indulgence. Same with new shoes. What's the unmet need? I mean, I get it. I see it's like wristwatches for me. The collection, it's always a new one. And it's a new wristwatch for a new suit for a new wristwatch, a new social occasion I imagine going out with. I imagine it's similar for shoes and people who collect pumps and trainers and women with the shoes. It's exhilarating, it's exciting, it's new combinations, it's the smell, the texture, the feel, the colour, the fit, the walk, the stance, where you're going, who you're going with, the social setting, it's everything, it's possibility, it's excitement, it's potential. Of course it's exciting. Is that what the need is for you? So here then is the process. It's learning the vocabulary of needs, not necessarily emotions or feelings, but what those indicate in respect of the underlying needs. And then practicing the awareness of negative feelings and identifying those unmet needs. And then adopting a communication style where expressing feelings is with reference to needs. As with all things, practice to become exquisite. And I think this is the crux of what we're doing when we're doing active listening or taking the position of helping people when they're needing to be heard. It's not that they need to be heard, that's too simplistic, surface level. They might not have the vocabulary to understand that their expression of rage or anger or sadness or even joy for some apparent reason is due to an unmet need or a need that's suddenly been satisfied, and they may not even realise this is what's going on. They've just got all this emotion and they don't know why, and they're meandering, they don't know what questions to ask, they're not exquisitely developed at this process. They don't know what their unmet need is, they're not even aware that it's there. So we can't really go to, I notice you're expressing anger through some manifest feeling. What is your unmet need that you haven't realised that you've actually got? What? So again, communicating in a style where expressing feelings is in reference to needs. It's where we need to get them to. I mean, this also applies to self, absolutely. So where there's conflict, judgments are expressed. Once needs are expressed, conflict is removed, and what remains is negotiation and a framework of agreement and terms to get those needs met. So I've yet to get to the big thick book on conflict resolutions, but I have a suspicion that money is the lowest common denominator in conflict. And when you just throw money at it, and I'm not interested in meeting your needs, but here, go and buy yourself a new shiny object. And then, 6 months later, it's the same all over again. No one's needs are being investigated or talked about or discovered. It's just go away, new bright shiny object. Short-term thinking, this is the tactic. Look at the news, look at the underlying issues. How well versed are we on foreign policy and treaty building? It's all short-term stuff. What politician said about another politician? What crazy slogan made it into the headline today? And tomorrow it's all but forgotten. It's a short-term distraction. It's the see-do pattern all over again. Beware of a trap, however, that when we do express needs and receive a reaction we didn't expect or that we don't like, and go to bad feeling, it's too easy to self-judge and chastise ourselves for even having such needs. Back to self-flagellating and submission to the... How do I express it? Well, in the last video we talked about this system of birds and voids, the emergent phenomena that the observer has contained within their observance, a kind of reflective or fractal observed phenomena. So when we express a need to somebody and they don't appreciate or understand what we're asking, then they make a judgment on it, and that's fed back to us. We then make a judgment about our own needs. I'm not sure of the wisdom of this, because then when we start questioning our own needs, we start thinking our needs are a burden rather than an expression of ourselves, that these are the things that are alive in us. But the thing to hold in mind is that conflict resolution comes quickly after the needs are expressed and integrated. And this requires that the needs are accurately expressed. And this can take a bit of time as the programmed judgments and all that bullshit get in the way, because we've been taught such impoverished ways of communication. And so this comes back to being a really good, clean, exquisite listener, that we're helping people by guiding them through all this programmed judgment crap to help them express their meaning accurately and precisely. Once they express and they realise what their underlying need is, that's the hard part done. Alright, so in practical terms then, what does this mean? Well, as a speaker, when we're expressing our emotions or our feelings, be aware of any sentence that starts you. You only think about yourself, you hurt my feelings, you don't care about me, you're not listening to me, you are filling blank with negative judgment or evaluation. This is exactly the wrong way to do it. It's not going to get us what we want, what we need. And it's normally of two formats that are the most useful. I feel, feeling. I have a request to make of you. And when we make requests, they have to be phrased kind of specifically in terms of being a request and not a demand. Because often we make demands of people because we are embarrassed to ask and we don't like being vulnerable. So we do this crazy game where we make a demand of somebody, and because of equity, well, I think human beings have quite a strong sense of equity and economics and gap and double accounting. We have a sense of balance about things. On one side, ass, and on the other side, lie, or to give them their full names, assets and liabilities. So the only way we can justify making a demand of somebody is if we have a perception that they owe us something. And how can they owe us something? Well, we create a linguistic construct where they've done us wrong. You made me feel, therefore, to fix it, you are to do this thing for me. And there's the demand. And by an implication, justified by a retrofitted wrong that puts them in your debt. And it's a horrible manipulation. So it's either a request or a statement about feelings if we're expressing ourselves in an honest and vulnerable way. Now, if it's not a request, if we're leaving that one out for the moment, it's an expression of feeling, which has the form I feel, name feeling. I feel sad. I feel happy. What it is not is that I feel that you are insensitive, because that's just another way of rearranging you are insensitive. So any expression of feelings that has the word that in it is an ill-formed expression of feeling, and really it's a turnaround to try and install shame, guilt, obligation or duty onto another person of whom we're about to make a demand. So let me just run a couple of statements. I feel that you are insensitive. I feel it's important for us to make decisions together. So in those two statements, what's the feeling? Is it one of happiness, joy, sadness, elation? You see, there's no real feeling specified there. It's a linguistic slide. I feel that you owe me £100. Okay, and what feeling is that then? So these are all the language constructs of I feel that. This is the right thing to do. I feel that. You ought to. I feel that. It's just it's not an expression of a feeling. So we're running afoul. If we are the expressor, if we're the speaker, we're not doing it as well as we might. So in quick summary, just for this little section, learn to observe behaviour without judgment. Describe behaviour without judgment, diagnosis or evaluation. Be aware of how to express feelings without judgments and identify the feeling. And do not use any of the following as feelings: misunderstood, used, manipulated, judged, criticised, ignored, rejected, betrayed, loved even. These are not feelings, but they are judgments. Love, yeah, okay, we'll get on to that.